Most people don't fail because of lack of skill. They fail because they can't think long term. They chase dopamine instead of data. They measure effort instead of results. A quote from Bill Gates says, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. To relate that to the story about, I guess how I first started, I started in 2022. So approximately little under 4 years ago. When I had first started, I had a friend of mine who loved business. He got me into business. He never ended up continuing. It was first dropshipping. I started about 7 businesses until I got to Omni, which some of you guys know, which is the LinkedIn lead generation company. Omni for me was what started everything. It's what taught me about business rules. It's what taught me about delegation. It's what taught me sales. It's what taught me market. It taught me everything. Before Omni, between 2022 and 2023, end of 2023, I've had a business for a year. It was a friend. It was a referral, somebody who just wanted me to do some content management. For a full year, I made $0 between 2022 and 2023, end of 2023. I met my current co-founder at a birthday party of another co-founder now. We essentially just sat together and said, how do we just sell people a high ticket item? That was really the only question that we went through. Long story short, the answer to that was LinkedIn marketing. We have Zane, who's my current co-founder right now. He's built and sold a marketing company. And so we were like, okay, what if we just copy that? What if we just do exactly what somebody else did and replicate it? And that was our answer. So what we started to do is we started to take sales calls ourselves. We booked our first few calls through LinkedIn, and it was like this whole entire thing. And we're like, oh my God, we're going to be so rich, not realizing how difficult it's going to be afterwards. Money is just a byproduct of solving valuable problems. The market doesn't care about how hard you work, only how useful you are, rather. You're paid in proportion to the plan you remove or pleasure you create. And so essentially what that means is if you're solving a $10 problem, you're going to make $10. If you're solving a $1 million problem, you're gonna make $1 million. The difference between the two is if you believe you deserve it or not. My problem when I first started doing sales was that I was quoting $1,000 and I thought $1,000 was the most expensive thing in the world. I was like, $1,000, that's a lot of money. Who can afford $1,000? I don't know, if you guys read the book The Secret, you guys would have known the law of attraction. What that caused is people to come into the door that didn't have money because I was under the assumption that nobody had money, so I only attracted those people. I remember when I had first started the business in 2023, I was still working an office job. The people that I was working with, just to give you some more perspective, they were all sort of older individuals. I was working as a network engineer. I was making okay money. Everyone who I was working with at the time were speaking in the past tense. So everything was in the past. There was nothing about them wanting to do anything more. It was like, oh, I enjoyed my trip there. Everything is past tense. There was no sort of next steps for them, right? And that scared me. And during that time is when I was doing some marketing stuff, we closed our first client. And that was a referral from a friend. And that was the first ever agency client that we ever closed. And it was $600. I was jumping up and down during that time. I called my co-founder. This was while I was in the cubicle working. I called Yarden, my current co-founder. I told him, yo, this is great. We're gonna make it, this, and that. $600. We split it halfway. We both made $300. That covered 2 dinners for us, but it was still something. And so what I've come to learn when working with a lot of high net worth individuals is that the guys that assume that everyone has money chase individuals and believe that they deserve more money. And the reason why they can charge such a high number of, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, because it's the same effort. It's the same effort to close somebody for $1,000 as it is to close somebody for $5,000 or $20,000. And I know people that do that. The only difference is that they believe they deserved it, which brings me sort of to the next step here, which is the internal game, like who you have to become in order to be comfortable to even say a high price. And at the time, just to relate back to myself, I was really scared to say $1,000. I was giving people discounts when they weren't even asking for it. And that was like, that scared everything in me, and I just couldn't blurb it out. I felt like I was asking for the biggest thing in the world to provide a service for $1,000. And that's where the limiting belief comes from. And over time, that went away. And right now we're saying, it's funny, we're like quoting like $6,000 prices. We have a staffing company that we own a percentage of that's quoting like $20,000 for one person to staff. That's their norm. That's normal. They deserve it. They understand the service and they believe that they can get there. You will never outperform your self-concept. Most people sabotage growth because deep down they don't believe they deserve it. The millionaire thinking way, right, as weird as it sounds, millionaire thinking equals identity that matches your goals, essentially. And wealthy people, they don't chase the goals, they become what the goal chases. Essentially what that means is if you believe in it so much and you do it for a long enough time, and when I say you believe in it, it is whatever it is that you believe in as far as like what you think you can charge or how much revenue you can generate. If you do that for long enough and you think it's possible, it will happen. The problem that I face with a lot of people is they just don't think they deserve it. And that's the biggest problem that I see with companies looking to make a lot of money. Deep down, do you genuinely believe that you deserve this? And if not, how can you start to believe that you deserve it? Is there like a self-limiting belief? Is there a blockage that's happening inside of your mind that makes you feel like you don't deserve it? That requires a lot more than systems. That requires a lot more than building a sales team. Because if you believe you deserve it, it starts to open doors for the possibility of you getting it. But if you shut it down in your mind, automatically, you just won't be able to get it. And so a lot of the times, I know I'm talking a lot about like business functions and how to build a sales team and how to scale a business. That's all great. And you can do all these things. But if you don't believe, again, you're deserving of bringing in that income or charging that higher ticket price or seeing yourself as something, not only do you not believe in it, but other people don't start to believe in you as well. Because they're like, why is he hesitating to give me the price? If you charge $6,000, say it. Hey, I charge $6,000. Say it. You believe in it. And if they're not gasping, if they're not like, oh God, okay, that's a lot of money, then you're doing it wrong. If you're trying to fight price and not choosing value, and you're having a pricing conversation rather than a value conversation, you're doing it wrong. Deloitte doesn't have a pricing conversation. Big consulting companies don't have a pricing conversation. They have a value conversation. If you input X amount of dollars or X amount of effort, you get something back. And that brings me to chapter 4, which is leverage over labor. Millionaires stop trading time for money and trade systems, people, and skills for money. What that looks like in our case is we have another company called Growbig Ventures. It's a private equity consulting firm. I'm actually wearing the shirt right now. To explain how we're working there, all my job, if you guys see my calendar, it's empty right now. We're scaling up towards 100K, and we got there in the last 4 months. Omni, the other business, it's also, we were at 100K at some point. We left the business, we stopped working in it, it went down, and now we're trying to scale it back up. Long story short, and this is gross revenue, this is not profit, by the way. Long story short, what we got really good at is just delegating. So we brought salespeople from the US. We brought a team that were paying a lot of money. They were good enough to be able to get us to step out of the business completely, because the less that we do, the higher our lever is when it comes to the leverage equation, when it comes to having other people do tasks for us and essentially do work for us. And what that allows us to do is, it's funny, I asked a friend of mine who scaled a business and he's exited the business, and he's like, oh, I have this person doing this, and I have this person do that, and I have this person do this. And I'm like, okay, what do you do in your business? He paused for a second and said, I think. That's what I do in my business. And so the poor people use effort, the rich use multipliers. That's essentially how you have to start to think, where it's like, how can I have a low churning item to sell, have the highest leverage possible, where I have the most amount of resources applied towards a certain thing that I know will scale itself without me needing to step in? Because all leverage is essentially using systems, tools, people to do a task that you don't need to do by leveraging money. If your only income grows when you work more hours, you don't own a business, you own a job. That's the bottom line thing. I think Bryce, who's still on this call right now, that was his main thing too, where he got to 10K a month, he's doing great. He sold a bunch of clients, he got to that level, and then afterwards he just saw himself doing a lot of work, like checking in on the clients and doing, like, you bought yourself a job essentially. And so how do you get to a point where you're not working anymore? Because do you want to work for the rest of your life? And if it's not something that you see yourself doing for the next 10 years, then you probably shouldn't be doing it right now. And I live by that, right? And that brings us obviously to the long game. So wealth compounds, impatience kills it. Success feels boring before it looks impressive. And the people who win aren't smarter. They're the ones who stayed consistent when everyone else got distracted. And that's really pretty much it. When we started Growbig Ventures, we had about 40K worth of revenue in a single month, not net new revenue, but total revenue across the last 3 months. Our profit on that was nothing. I made almost no money out of that. Most people that see that are like, okay, you just created a business that you're not making money from. The way that we saw it is we're investing so much back into the business that instead of making, 10K profit each, we're gonna make 30K profit each between the co-founders. That was our whole thing, where it's like, the only way to push more is to invest more money and cut down on your profits. And so people care about profits, and that's important. Phenomenal. Go profit all you need to. But again, you're gonna get to a point where you need some A-star individuals on your team in order for you to scale. It's not, again, necessarily what you have to do. It's who you have to become to get to that level, what your goals are. And I'll say this flat out. There's people out there are happy with their lives, working a regular job, who are satisfied, who are content. Great, they're winning. They just won in life. right? They're doing better than a lot of people even on this call. They're doing better than me. They want in life. If you're not satisfied in what you're doing and in the current life that you're living, then you have something more to gain. And that person who's satisfied and happy, the dude whose whole entire life goal is to live on a farm somewhere and just mind his business, and that's his form of happiness, and that's exactly what he wants to do, he's winning. That guy is winning. Right now, us wanting more means in our minds, we're not winning. It's all really relative. The question that you should really ask yourself is, how do I make decisions that my 10-year from now self would respect? And it's like, okay, do I want to, blow all my money on cars, or do I want to, again, invest it back into a business? So the main thing that will get you to that sort of millionaire status is literally making no money for an extended amount of time and doing so much work until you get to that level. I always say this, it's like, okay, it's super impressive, great, phenomenal. I have a company that makes 50K. How much do you profit? Okay, and if you profit very little, why do you profit very little? How much money are you investing back? How aggressive are you going with growth? And if you profit a lot, then the chances are your company is not going to grow unless you have like a killer month and you just, profit a ton. If all you're focused on is money and your reason is just money, then you need a purpose, essentially, is what I'm saying outside of it. It's like, ask yourself why. Like, why do you start this? And this is a question that I've asked myself numerous times. I don't even know how to answer this question. Why do you do what you do? What is the purpose? Is it like an ego thing? If you have a product, do you really truly believe in the product and the fact that it can help people, and that's why you're doing this? Are you passionate about helping people scale their business, or do you just want money? Because chances are, if you just want money, then that product will not scale, because you're scaling the business under the assumption that you want money, but you're not scaling the customer satisfaction with it. You don't build wealth by working harder, you build wealth by thinking clearer. And that's essentially the 6 phases that I've used personally in my business in order for me to have a portfolio of 7 businesses doing about $6 million a year in gross revenue, not profit. That's, the point that we got to. So think investments, right? The last time I jumped on this call, I was talking about investing into businesses and taking the risk, delaying your gratification as far as how much revenue you make right off the bat for a higher payout. If you go to the number 1 person at your job, let's say you're working a job, and you go to the number 1 person and you're like, I have this amazing, phenomenal idea where I can, we're all marketers here, most of us, or I can market your company and I can help bring in extra leads and help bring in extra revenue and be this, and that. And they say, okay, great, we can give you a pay raise. A smart person will decline the pay raise and say, no, I want to work for the experience, and I want to be a part of the company long term because I want XYZ. I'm not talking about like enterprise large companies, I'm talking about like a smaller-ish mid-sized company, because I want X equity or because I want X thing. So the longer that you delay your gratification, the more money that you'll make in the long run. It's funny, I had a buddy of mine lose about, again, $200,000, and he was doing drop shipping. And because of the tariffs, he was telling me the story yesterday, he bought a bunch of items and he was shipping it from China to the United States. And because of the tariff war, everything got held. And he couldn't fulfill on those, I won't say names, but he couldn't fulfill on their product. So he lost absolutely everything, all of it. He lost it all. Right now, he's importing from the United States to the United States. So he's working with US factories. And he said he's probably made more money than he's ever made in his life, right? And so again, the longer you delay it, the more obviously money that you're gonna make.